Story 1. The Red Room Mark was a tech-savvy college student who enjoyed exploring the hidden corners of the internet. One night, he stumbled upon a forum discussing Red Rooms, live streams of real-time torture and murder. Intrigued, he followed a series of cryptic instructions, eventually landing on a site that required a hefty Bitcoin payment to enter. As the screen loaded, Mark's curiosity turned to dread. The room was dimly lit, with a single chair in the center. A man in a mask entered, dragging a bound and gagged woman. The chat on the side of the screen filled with commands from other viewers, demanding increasingly brutal acts. Mark's horror deepened as he realized he was watching a live murder. Panicked, he closed his laptop, but it was too late. The next day, a package arrived at his dorm. Inside was a note. "You watched. Now you're part of the game." Mark fled, but the shadows followed him. He was found dead a week later, his face frozen in terror. Story 2. The Sound Sarah loved listening to obscure music and had a habit of diving deep into the dark web for rare tracks. One night, she found a link to a site promising the most haunting melody ever recorded. Curiosity piqued, she clicked the link and downloaded the file. The sound was unlike anything she'd heard, a chilling, dissonant melody that seemed to burrow into her mind. The more she listened, the more she felt an overwhelming sense of dread. She tried to turn it off, but the music continued to play, even with her computer shut down. That night, Sarah had nightmares of twisted, shadowy figures. She woke to find her room cold and dark, the music still playing. Desperate, she smashed her laptop, but the sound persisted, echoing through her mind. Days later, her body was found, eyes wide open, ears bleeding. The coroner noted that her expression was one of pure, unadulterated terror. Story 3. The mask maker Tom was a collector of rare and unusual items. While browsing the dark web, he found an auction for custom masks, each designed to perfectly replicate a person's face. Intrigued, he placed a bid and won. A few days later, he received an email asking for photos of his face from various angles. Weeks passed, and Tom forgot about the mask until a package arrived. Inside was a mask that was an exact replica of his face. Impressed by the craftsmanship, he put it on, but as soon as it touched his skin, he felt a searing pain. He tried to remove it, but it seemed fused to his flesh. Tom's screams went unheard as his face twisted and contorted under the mask. In his final moments, he saw his reflection, a grotesque, distorted version of himself. The mask had become his face, and his last thought was a chilling realization. Somewhere, someone was wearing his real face. Story 4. The surgeon Jake was a thrill-seeker who loved urban exploration and testing the limits of fear. He came across a dark web forum discussing a rumored surgeon who offered illegal body modifications. Eager to experience something new, Jake contacted the surgeon and arranged a meeting. The surgeon operated out of an abandoned warehouse. The place was filled with surgical instruments and jars containing human parts. Despite the warning signs, Jake went through with the procedure, which promised to enhance his physical abilities. When he woke up, Jake was horrified to find himself strapped to a table, his body altered in unimaginable ways. His limbs were elongated, his fingers turned into claws, and his skin stretched tight over a skeletal frame. The surgeon stood over him, admiring his work. "You are my masterpiece," the surgeon said, a twisted smile on his face. Jake's screams echoed through the warehouse, but there was no escape. The surgeon had turned him into a living nightmare, a testament to the horrors lurking in the darkest corners of the web. Story 5. The puppet master Lisa was a social media influencer, always on the lookout for the next viral sensation. One day, she received a message from an anonymous user offering access to a secret dark website where she could find unique content. Curious, Lisa followed the link and found herself on a page called The Puppet Master. The site featured live streams of people who seemed to be going about their daily lives. However, as Lisa watched, she noticed something disturbing. The individuals' movements were strangely mechanical, as if they were being controlled. The chat was filled with commands from viewers, and the people on the screen obeyed every order without question. Lisa tried to leave the site, but her screen froze. The camera on her laptop activated, and she saw her own terrified face reflected back at her. A message appeared: "Welcome, new puppet." From that moment on, Lisa's life was no longer her own. She became another marionette in the puppet master's twisted show, her every move dictated by the unseen audience. Story 6. The Lost Diary. Alex was a journalist with a passion for uncovering hidden truths. His latest investigation led him to a dark website hosting a collection of diaries supposedly written by people who had vanished without a trace. Intrigued, he downloaded one titled The Lost Diary. The diary belonged to a young woman named Emily, who had documented her descent into paranoia after encountering a mysterious figure. Her entries grew increasingly frantic as she described how the figure would appear in the background of her photos, always getting closer. The last entry was a chilling account of Emily's final moments as the figure broke into her home. As Alex finished reading, he noticed a new entry had appeared, dated that very day. It described him in detail, sitting at his desk reading the diary. Heart pounding, he looked around but saw nothing. That night, Alex heard footsteps outside his window. When he looked out, he saw a shadowy figure watching him. The next morning, Alex was gone, leaving behind only his own unfinished diary. Story 7. The Whispering Voices. Megan was an avid gamer who loved exploring the darkest corners of the internet for rare and unique games. One night she stumbled upon a forum discussing a game called Whispering Voices. The game was rumored to be so terrifying that many who played it were never the same. Ignoring the warnings, Megan downloaded the game and began to play. It started as a simple puzzle game, but soon the whispers began. At first they were faint, almost indiscernible, but as she progressed, they grew louder and more insistent. The whispers spoke her name, revealed her deepest fears, and taunted her with personal secrets. Megan tried to quit the game, but her computer wouldn't shut down. The whispers followed her even when she left her room. Desperate, she smashed her computer, but the voices remained, now echoing in her mind. Days later, Megan was found wandering the streets, muttering to herself. She never played another game again, haunted by the whispering voices that had taken over her life. Story 8. The doll collector Ethan had a peculiar hobby of collecting vintage dolls. His collection was his pride and joy, each doll meticulously restored and displayed. One night, while browsing the dark web for rare finds, he came across a site advertising living dolls, dolls made from real people. Horrified yet fascinated, Ethan delved deeper into the site, which claimed to offer the most lifelike dolls available. He placed an order, curious to see what would arrive. A week later, a large crate was delivered to his doorstep. Inside was a beautiful life-size doll with eerily realistic features. As Ethan examined the doll, its eyes flickered open. It began to move, pleading for help. The realization hit him. This was no ordinary doll. The sight had transformed a living person into this horrific state. The doll's eyes followed him everywhere, its pleas growing more desperate. Terrified, Ethan tried to return the doll, but the sight had vanished. He couldn't destroy it, fearing it might be the only way to free the person trapped inside. The doll became a haunting presence in his home, a constant reminder of the darkness he had uncovered. Ethan's obsession had led him to the ultimate horror, a living nightmare he could never escape.